getting ready for quick turnaround here versus a good Nebraska team that's went on the road at top 10 Creighton team and had some other really good wins, obviously overtime with Purdue. So quick turnaround for them here after yesterday afternoon's game. No injury updates really of significance.
Well, I know every offseason you self-scout and you kind of go over things that have happened the year before, try to learn from it. You've had losing streaks like this before. Do you are there common things you've seen as you've examined some of those ones in the past, or is it, I know every team is different, situations are different, but are there common things you can learn from the past ones that help you now?
I don't not necessarily, other than, you're playing in a really good league. We looked at it a couple years ago after, we struggled in January. But, we've also been really good in January last year and struggled late. And we've had times where we've been really good late and struggled. So I think, I don't know if there's a specific pattern or factors other than we just need to play better.
You I think, used the phrase like seeing the forest for the trees or something like that on your radio show when it comes to like talking to other coaches and things like that when you're going through this. Can you shed some light into what it is like to try to keep everybody together and try to keep everything pointed in the same page when you are going through a tough stretch like this?
Well, I think that really, like anything, it tests the character of your group and the resilience of your group. That gets tested in these moments. We'll see how we respond. Obviously, it's a significant remainder of the Big Ten season to go. There's a lot in front of us. I think your leadership, your resilience, the tough-mindedness of your group gets tested. And again, that's the case for a lot of teams around the country and a lot of teams in leagues where there's just a lot of good teams.
Coach, the fact that all these losses have been so close, you've been in every game, how much can that be a silver lining, or does that just add to the frustration, I guess?
I don't know if it does either, Griffin, as much as it just challenges you to find ways to be a few possessions better in areas each half. I think that's, certainly if we were getting blown out, I think, you'd have maybe more cause for concern because that would be more of an indictment on the number of possessions you've lost in each half, but neither feels very good.
And then I know the Minnesota game, you called it your guys' porous offensive performance.
Yeah.
Obviously, Rutgers is one of the best defenses in the country, but an even worse shooting performance yesterday in that one. Are you seeing commonalities or things you need to adjust to make sure that doesn't become a trend going forward?
I think we've got to make better paint decisions. We've got to see the open man quicker and better and make cleaner reads in those situations when we've created a help situation. I think that's the biggest thing for us right now.
Chris, early in the second half, there was a sequence of events where it looked like Rutgers blocked a shot and it went off the rim, and then maybe Zed pulled it down and it hit the rim again.
Yeah.
Shot clock didn't reset, and on the broadcast they never really gave any kind of explanation as to why. From your spot, what did they tell you there?
To be honest with you, it was hard to understand what the official was saying. Rob explained it to me, but I didn't quite get his. Maybe it's just the craziness of the moment. I didn't quite get his explanation, to be honest with you. So I wasn't going to win that argument, so we just moved on.
And then unrelated to on Bryce's final shot and on the radio, you said I would have liked him to maybe kill a couple more seconds. When you practice that at practice on a final possession, is there like a certain time when you're like, this is when you take the shot, or is it dependent on the shot that you're going to get? Because it set Rutgers up for not bad luck.
It did. Yeah, it sure did. About like the Carolina game timing is what we prefer. In North Carolina, when he caught it at the elbow, and I think he shot it with like maybe 3 or 4. That's typically what we've told our guys. I've seen him make that shot a number of times. He did not have their best defender on him. It's a good defender, but not their best defender. They had gotten switched in transition. And they're really good at guarding actions as well as blowing up certain actions. So He did a great job creating some separation. He really created separation with the move that we've seen him make a number of times. Just a simple cross and getting to his left. I think he probably just rushed it a little bit. We'll help him with that. It's a big moment for a freshman. He's been in a number of those, but whether it's him or whether it's somebody else, I'm not always going to call a timeout in that situation. We just need to help our guys in terms of making sure they take it with a few less seconds on the clock.
Now that you've had a little bit of time to look back, what do you think of the starting five you rolled with, and what were the positives and maybe some of the negatives with that five?
Obviously we had trouble scoring there in the first 4 minutes. Some of that was on us, some of that was on them, but I thought defensively we set a tone, which was good. But, I think we have a number of guys that can start, so I don't know that that's the lineup we'll stick with or change. It's, I think we have a number of guys that are going to play in that sweet spot at 20 to 28 minutes, like starter-type minutes, and, those two guys were a part of that.
Second overtime game of the season, what kind of things did you see different from the UNC game? Were there similarities? Did you feel like it was a different performance, or things that you got better at or worse?
I like where we got the ball on a couple occasions, to be honest with you, both in regulation and end of game, and I really do trust that our guys will finish some of those plays. I don't remember all the quality of possessions in the Carolina game, but I felt like this one was certainly more within our reach.
Looking at the stats from the last two games, ordinarily you might get 2 or 3 shots blocked per game, but it was 6 against Minnesota and 8 yesterday in the game against Rutgers. I know they're a great defensive team and have Omorie.
Yep.
I don't know, just what's your thought about maybe the decision-making, and you want guys to be aggressive, but there's a fine line to that when you're going against guys that can reject it pretty easily, I suppose.
Yeah, we have to make better paint decisions. We have to make better paint decisions than what we're doing right now. We've got to be able to find and see the open guy and see the kick out, and then maybe the one more. We have to get better at that than what we've been. We've always been a pretty heavy dribble drive team this year, and certainly sometimes in years past. That allows us to get to the free throw line. It allows us to get to the paint. But it also puts a premium on good paint decisions. And that's where a guy like EJ really grew in his last year, his ability to make paint reads, paint decisions, see help, and then deliver the ball on time, on target. And I think that's just where some of our guys have to grow. They've done a good job at creating help, but they've got to make better reads.
Justice, you feel like you almost sense his frustration at times that he's not getting the result out of it from the work or whatever he's putting into it at times. Just what can you do? Is this a case of a guy who didn't play last year and now halfway through the season he could be hitting a wall of some sort? I don't know, but just seems like he's a guy you depend on so much, and that he's pressing a little bit to just try and get you guys over the hump. I don't know what do you see with him?
Yeah, I think that might be part of it. I think there could be some of that with him. I think Justice has to make sure that he's controlling what he can control in terms of his attention to detail, his effort. He can't control if he's going to make every shot, but he can. There are things that he can control. His leadership out on the floor, and that's really what we're challenging him with. He's done a pretty good job getting to his spots. I think he is probably frustrated with a couple missed opportunities he's had, but he'll respond.
You mentioned early in the year quite a bit about how the freshmen and their progression would give you guys kind of your ceiling. But in a situation like this, when you're having tough times, how much do you have to lean more on the veterans, whether it be guys that have been in the program or some of the transfer guys that have been around college basketball?
I think it's you certainly need your leadership in this moment. I think we're going to need him. We're going to need him the rest of the way. I think January, February, your leadership really gets defined. And I'm not putting all the responsibility on them, but I think it's going to be really critical for those guys and the older guys to be able to lead in ways that good leaders lead. They control things in the locker room. They limit distractions. They bring perspective. They have poise in the midst of challenging moments. They communicate. They play for each other. They lead the way in playing for each other. They lead the way in their unselfishness. They play for Ohio State. They come to work. They're everyday guys. That's what is going to be needed in these moments, and I think that's the challenge in front of those guys.
Chris, in this particular episode, do you find yourself being the stay the course guy, or, hey, we need to shake something up here because you're close? And all you need, is this one of those things where if we win a game, we'll be back to where we were?
Yeah, Clay, I don't know if I look at it quite like that as much as I don't know if you ever feel, back in a league like this that is so challenging. I think you're really just focused on how we're performing. Are we performing better from game to game or half to half? And there are going to be some outliers there. We performed really well against Northwestern. We really struggled against Minnesota. But I think the reality is you're looking for over time. Are we showing improvements? And if there's areas that there's slippage in, we have to make those corrective measures. So you're certainly looking strategically at are there some things we need to change? Are there adjustments to how we do things schematically or personnel adjustments? But more than anything, you're looking at are we doing the things that we've been practicing better? And if we're not, we need to figure out why.
I know you said no real injury updates, but you mentioned on the radio Bruce going through wrist issues. Just how much has that affected him, and how long has he been dealing with some
I think it's affected him a little bit. I do think it has affected him a little bit. He injured it in practice, and then, if you go back and you watch the game the other day, the last possession, defensive possession of regulation, he just got slammed into a body. And I think he re-injured a little bit in that particular play. But he's a really tough kid. He'll respond.
Chris, you talked about the importance of leadership in this moment. Have you seen anybody in the locker room sort of take that initiative to be a leader in these type of rough stretches? Yeah, I think our captains are doing justice, leading the way with that, is growing into that role. But again, that's going to continue to get tested here these last several weeks. So, that story's still being written. Right. And you talked about the importance of taking what you're doing in practice and translating that to the game and doing that right. What are those things that you're doing in practice that you want to see translated to the game just in these coming games?
Everything we've talked about in terms of, if you're being asked to block out, you need to block out. You got to pursue the ball. You got to be able to be in the 50 spot defensively, a pass away. You got to be, if you're supposed to be at the MIG, you got to be at the MIG. We need to have great effort and communication defensively and great communication in transition. I think the ball has to move better offensively. We've got to be able to make better paint decisions. If you're supposed to go to the offensive glass, you got to do that. All those things are what we're looking for.